Hello and welcome to another video by www.electricalpereview.com. This is our third and final installment of the How to Pass the PE Exam the Very First Time series, which also covers how to pass if you have failed before. In this video, the third and final stage is Stage 3, Execute, standing for the exam day. So duration, this is the exam day. We're going to cover what to expect, what to bring, advanced test-taking strategy, and what to do when you're finished. So we're going to jump into the first step. It's what to expect. So for your exam room and proctoring, make sure to bring your government-issued ID, an exam day authorization notice. Make sure to read the latest requirements such as what is and what is not allowed in the exam day room. Make sure to read the latest examinee guide. Next, seating will be assigned, usually 2 to a table. And from the examinee guide, it says exam proctors will assist you in locating your assigned seat. Cell phones, smartwatches, fitness trackers, and other electronic devices are not allowed in the exam room at any time. If you have these devices in your possession after the exam begins, you will be dismissed from the exam room, your exam will be invalidated, and you will forfeit your exam registration fee. So very important. Next, no cell phones. Whatever you do, don't risk anything other than an approved calculator. People will be dismissed from the exam. You will see it happen because they forgot. Do not let that happen to you. You do not want that to be you. Next, also from the examinee guide, breaks. You may request to take a break at any time by raising your hand and waiting for your proctor to assist you. Try to keep breaks to a minimum. They're pretty time consuming. When you do take a break, the proctor comes by, looks at your exam, folds it up into the packet, and collects it, and then usually escorts you to the bathroom. So they are pretty time consuming. Take them if you need to, but try to keep them to a minimum. Next, also what you can expect, it's usually in a very large hotel conference room, about 300 test takers. They're going to be all disciplines of engineering, not just yours. There's going to be assigned seating, 2 per table with sealed exam packets. I think we covered that already. There may or may not be a visible clock. Very important hint, make sure you bring your own to pace yourself. There's going to be 2 sessions with a break in between, a morning session and an afternoon session. Each session is 4 hours long. Each session contains 40 multiple choice questions. For the exam pace, 4 hours, 60 minutes, and 40 question means you have a working pace of 6 minutes on average per question per session. So it's pretty quick. During the midway break between both sessions, you'll be asked to leave the room. You may go to your car, hotel room, eat lunch, and generally socialize with other test takers, but whatever you do, don't talk about the exam. It's against the rules. Avoid all urges to discuss difficult problems, and definitely at all costs, avoid any negative people and complainers like the plague. Don't let them bring you down. You're going to have a lot of people with not a whole lot of confidence, but since you prepared, you're ready, just avoid them. All right, jumping into the next portion, what to bring. You're going to want to read ahead of time, exam day policies, the examinee guide, and quoted from the guide, items permitted in the room are ID used during the administration process, exam authorization, 1 copy, calculator that complies with the calculator policy, wristwatches and small clocks, approved reference materials, eyeglasses with no case, earplugs. Those are great, by the way. I used them when I took the exam, and I definitely recommend them. You're not sure who's going to be making what kind of noise. It's a lot easier to focus. Continuing on, 2 straight edges such as a ruler, scale, triangle, or protractor, handheld non-electronic magnifying glasses with no case, head coverings worn as religious apparel are okay, snacks such as hard candies, candy bars, gum, and of course non-alcoholic beverages, no drinks. Items not permitted in the exam room, included but not limited to cell phones, smartwatches, fitness trackers, other prohibited electronic devices, loose paper, legal pads, unbound or improperly bound notes, hats with brims, hoods, hooded sweatshirts, unapproved calculators, slide charts, wheel charts, or drafting compasses, non-NCEES, writing instruments or erasers, weapons of any kind, tobacco products, and personal chairs. And a quick note, slide charts, wheel charts are those kind of handheld charts we use in the industry sometimes to size different components where you can either slide it out or spin a wheeled dial. Do not bring those. They will kick you out. So no cell phones. Leave yours in your car or your hotel room. Bring your books and references. You're going to see suitcases and tote carts full of books like you can't even imagine. Mobile bookcases, coolers with wheels, and many other creative book carriers and holders. If you've taken the exam before, it won't be a surprise to you, but for many, if you haven't taken it and no one's kind of clued you in, people on average bring anywhere from 12 to 15 to 20 books it's pretty incredible. So books and references. You're going to want to bring every single book and reference that you have. And the reason for that is the book you only opened once while studying could potentially hold the answer to a unique word problem on the exam. You're going to want to set up your books vertically in front of you with the spine and title facing you for easy reference. You can use two of your larger books as bookends by laying them flat horizontally on each end with your remaining books in between. I did that. It was very helpful. Each book you bring, you should have already spent at least 20 minutes or more reading through the table of contents and skimming the chapters prior to the exam to know what's inside. So important, right? Make sure you spend the time leading up to the exam to know what each book has so you know which one to go for. You don't want to be opening one of your books for the first time on the exam because that would just be silly. So you should definitely know which of your books do a better job at explaining key topics and have good, specific go-to examples. Tab them ahead of time. Make sure to tab chapters and highlight keywords in the index while you're studying so that your books are prepped for the exam. Organize your books on your exam table that makes sense to you. Some people like to do them by subject. Some people like them by relevancy. Some will put their favorite in the middle. Whatever works for you. Make sure you have some kind of system. And another important reminder, we're going to be bringing this up quite a bit. Don't use loose leaf papers to mark your pages, right? Because that's illegal and they will throw you out. A common mistake for first-time exam takers is only bringing a couple of books and thinking it's going to be enough. I can't tell you how many questions I answered by digging through books I barely touched while studying towards the end of the exam. So a good way to think about it is have a book. Is it relevant? Does it talk about electrical topics? Bring it. So hand notes and printed references. At the time of making this video, you're permitted to bring in your own notes as long as they're bound and not loose leaf. So kind of think along the lines of 3-ring binders, duotangs with metal inserts, spiral-bound notebooks like the picture on the right-hand side. They're all perfectly fine. However, do not take packets of paper just stapled together, legal pads, no spare pads, or sticky notes or flags. However, if you've got books and references already tabbed and flagged, that's okay. Next, read the reference material on the examinee guide. It states, reference materials must be bound and remain bound during the exam. Bound refers to materials permanently bound, as by stitching or glue, and materials securely fastened in their covers by fasteners that penetrate all papers. Loose paper may be bound with ring binders, braids, plastic snap binders, spiral-bound notebooks, and screw posts, but not with staples. Writing tablets and legal pads are not allowed. You may tab reference books before the exam with sticky notes and flags, but pads of sticky notes and flags are not permitted in the exam room. Refer to the NCEES Canada Agreement to review the policy on references. So what does this all mean for us taking the exam? Well, you're going to want to bring your study binder that you have been preparing all along that you learned about in video 2. Make sure you do not have any loose leaf papers, especially hiding in between pages of books. Proctors will painstakingly check every single reference material for every single examining. They're going to throw you out. Be careful. You're going to see it happen to someone in your exam room. Oftentimes we hear they just didn't know, they didn't realize. No one wants to try to break the exam rules. No one wants to get kicked out after all that hard work. So don't let it happen to you by mistake. Make sure you check every single reference you have because they're going to check it for you. So just like we said, make sure and you check because any stuck pages between, they're going to check and they're going to kick you out. Next, calculators. By now you should have already confirmed that your calculator is on the approved list. So there's a link to the approved calculator list that is subject to change. So make sure you review it leading up to your exam. For a quick reference, these are all the Casio models that are approved at the time of this recording. These are all FX-115 models. Next, these are the 2 HP calculators approved, the 33S and 35S. And the Texas Instruments. So all TI-30X and all TI-36X models. Quick rule of thumb, no graphing calculators. If you got a graphing calculator, sorry about your luck, but get a new one. So that was the executable list at the time of making this video. That list is subject to change. Make sure you check on the NCEES website and make sure yours is on the approved list. Okay, very important. I'm going to want you to bring 2 calculators and install new batteries in each one. And yes, really, and I know it sounds silly, but here's why. You don't want to run out of batteries, have a beverage spill on it, malfunction. It does happen. You would be very surprised. So think about how silly you would feel if you failed the exam because you brought one calculator and it decided to stop working. We're all about being prepared. We want to prepare for every scenario. We want to do the very best on the exam that we can. So be prepared. Think about how many people take the PE exam for every single discipline of engineering. I guarantee at least one or two are going to have one calculator. Something's going to happen to it, and they are going to be quite out of luck because once the exam starts, they're in trouble. So be prepared. Bring two calculators. The approved calculators, you can buy them on Amazon with free 2-day delivery if you already have Amazon Prime, anywhere from $10 to $20. No excuses not to have a backup. It's pretty cheap. Next, what to bring: food and snacks. Let's talk about caffeine. Caffeine affects everyone differently, as we know, and this goes without saying, but the exam day is definitely not going to be the day you're going to want to experiment and find out if you work better with more or less caffeine than normal. So stick to what you know, stick to what's normal for you. Remember, you can always drink more caffeine, but you can't drink less. Avoid overdoing it. It's going to make you physically stressed and you are going to crash. So avoid it. You're going to get that 30 minutes of awesome productivity, but the rest of the exam, you're not going to feel too well. However, if you are a caffeine junkie, like many of us are, myself included, make sure to bring in enough fuel to last both sessions. Consider bringing more than what you think is necessary. You can always decide to consume less, but you can't decide to go out and get more once the exam starts. If you have leftover beverages after the exam, you can always drink it later. So again, be prepared. Think iced coffee, tea, Red Bull, energy drinks, 5-hour energy shots, and people like those. Anything really in a container that's enclosed, that's not going to go bad and spoil, that you can bring in will do just fine. Next, fluids. Don't forget plenty of water to keep you hydrated throughout the exam. Caffeine especially, because it dehydrates you. But also, of course, be mindful of your fluid intake. Don't drink more than necessary. Multiple trips to the bathroom, it's going to rob you of that precious time to solve those last couple of problems. So be careful. Next, snacks. Bring snacks that are going to give you energy, but stick to what you usually snack on while you've been studying during those long sessions. Just like with caffeine, the exam day is definitely not the time to experiment with your sugar intake. So stick with what you know, stick with what you like and what works well for you. Good choices for snacks: fruit, nuts, granola bar, crackers, PB&J sandwiches, and of course chocolate and candy if you do have a sweet tooth. You can definitely bring food and snacks into the room. You don't want to lose focus if you're hungry because you're going to start having trouble concentrating. For lunch, brown bag it. You can bring a small cooler and keep in your car. This definitely goes without saying, but please do not leave the hotel room to try to go and get lunch for many of the obvious reasons. Red lights are going to slow you down if there's an accident, and it's just going to put you in a rush. You're going to have to rush to leave, rush to get something to eat, rush to eat it, rush to come back. What happens if when you come back you're late for whatever reason? They're not going to let you in and your test is going to be invalidated. So please be prepared. Bring a brown bag, a small cooler, whatever you want. Just do not leave the hotel to go get lunch. And of course, overeating. I know it sounds kind of silly, but it's just a good reminder. You don't want to be sluggish. All right. Stage 3, advanced test taking strategy. So if you're getting tired or you're having trouble paying attention, this is definitely the time to sit up straight. It's going to be the most important part of this video. So please pay attention. I want you to do the best that you can. So I'm going to ask you, do you want to leverage your highest score possible by taking the exam in a way that's going to give you a tremendous advantage? Right? Of course. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take the exam in multiple passes from the beginning to the end for both sessions, instead of just taking it from start to finish. This means not letting yourself get stuck on those tougher problems and wasting valuable time. And this entire strategy is centered around how the exam is scored and the time you have per question. Remember that each question is going to be worth the same amount of points. Our goal is to get the highest number of points per time session. So how do we do this? This means that every single one of the very difficult problems are going to be worth the same amount as I call them the gimme problems, the really easy questions. And this happens to work out tremendously in our favor if we know how to use it. So do you see where we're going with this? I hope you do. So don't take the entire exam from start to finish, spending, say, 30 minutes on each time you encounter one of the tougher problems, and then taking the time to look up the right answers, dig through formulas, and end up with many unanswered questions towards the end because of that, or end up with not a lot of time left to finish the remaining questions in the session, and then you're going to be extremely rushed and out of time. So what we do want you to do, take the exam in multiple passes. What does that mean? Move on if you end up spending more than 6 minutes a problem during your first pass. Remember that 6-minute average we talked about earlier. Leave unanswered questions not bubbled in or slightly bubbled in if you're kind of sure, but not really. This is going to make it easier to go back on. And then once you get to the end, you're going to start over from the beginning, and then you're going to start with those more difficult ones that you left either partially bubbled or not bubbled. And then you're going to continue to move on as you get stumped, just like you did in the first pass, until you reach the end again. Now, you should have up to about, say, 25% of the exam unanswered at the end of the first pass. And of course, that means when you get to the very end of the exam, the 25% being those questions you left unbubbled. You're going to have another pass would be your second, and then on your third and fourth passes, you should be answering those really difficult ones. We want to save the questions that we really have no idea about, or that we really need to dig through multiple books to answer. We want to save those as the very, very last questions, regardless of what order they appear on the exam. The very first question, question 1 on the first session in the morning, that could be it. That could be one of those just cerebral problems that, man, we're going to be digging forever. You know what? Doesn't matter. It's the first question. Move on. Avoid the trap. So we want to avoid spending large amounts of time to answer the extremely difficult questions at the expense of running out of time to answer many questions that would have been easy. Again, remember, every question is worth the same. So we would rather not to get to answering 1 or 2 of the most difficult questions by the time we run out of time in exchange for answering 10 to 20 questions that we're confident in or fairly certain about. So our goal is to have the highest number of correct questions as possible. Does not matter the difficulty, they're all worth the same. Another thing is you should be using the strategy when you take time practice exams leading up to the actual exam at a same timed, uninterrupted pace of 4 hours for 40 mixed questions of varying difficulty and topic. We touched on that in the previous video, but in case you didn't see it, it's a great reminder. You want to be comfortable with that pace and used to it, and you want to be comfortable with leaving questions unanswered when you get stumped to come back to them. So in this order, when we do each pass, the first one, we want the easy ones, the ones that, it's okay to look up some things here and there as reference, but pretty much means we more or less know what we're doing and we're 80% sure that we're going to get it right. On the second pass, medium questions, the next ones, maybe we left them partially shaded. A lot of times when you see other questions, you're going to get a light bulb moment and then remember how to solve a question you passed up on. It's really cool how that works. And then the third, the really difficult ones, the ones that, man, I solved one just like that a couple months ago in practice. Maybe if I can find the reference material I brought where it has that one, I could solve this too. And then the last, the extremely difficult ones, the ones that are really kind of surprising you, making you feel uncomfortable, the ones that you go, wow, what the heck, I didn't think I'd see a question like this on the exam. I really didn't prepare for this, but I've got all these great references in front of me. I bet I can find it if I look hard enough. So you want to save those for the very end, say last 15 minutes of the exam. Next, how you solve each question matters. What do we mean by this? Well, remember our goal, again, to solve as many problems correctly as possible. So now we want to avoid simple mistakes at all costs. Sounds simple, but I want you to avoid the trap of thinking you're saving valuable time by not writing out your formulas, by not sketching diagrams, by not showing your work, kind of trying to do it on the calculator, and not writing down units next to your numbers. Please avoid this. I'm telling you, it's costing you valuable points. It might save you a little bit of time. You might be pinching a couple of seconds here or there, but it's going to be extremely costly in the long run. It could definitely be the difference in passing or failing. Next, show your work, please. If you get anything out of this video, show your work anywhere you can. So always start each problem by taking the extra 5 seconds to write out formulas and draw relevant diagrams. Things like drawing out the circuit, drawing the power triangle, drawing out the transformer diagrams, whatever it is. Anything that helps you visualize what the problem information is giving you and what it's asking you. Please don't be lazy, right? I really want you to do the best you can do, so please don't be lazy. Show all of your work. It's not going to take you much more time, and it's going to make it much, much easier when you're going back to check your work, and I mean it. It's also going to prevent you from making common mistakes in arithmetic and on your calculator. And a big one, pet peeve of mine, always write down your units next to a number, including and especially K for 1,000 or capital M for 1,000,000, mega. Do you know what the most common mistake is reported among students? It's getting the wrong value for your answer because you used the wrong unit. Please avoid this trap. What do I mean by that? You've got a couple of numbers in thousands, you've got 1 or 2 in mega, and you multiply them together, or you add them, or you subtract them, and because there was no K or M next to it, they end up getting added up or multiplied together as the same unit, and now your number is not right. It's all messed up. So please avoid this trap. You'll thank me once you get used to this. If you're already doing it, good on you. Keep it up. If you're not doing it, now's the time to start. Write down those units. Next, three-phase problems and single-phase problems. We know these can be super tricky. It's kind of the more trickier parts of the material until you get really used to it. So I want you to always constantly be asking yourself the following, right? These questions should be going through your head, not just when you study, but when you're taking the exam. It's going to save you a mistake. So you should be thinking, is this a single-phase problem? Is this a three-phase problem? Should I be using the line-to-line voltage here? Or should I be using the line-to-neutral voltage? Should I be multiplying by the square root of 3? Is this a square root of 3 problem? Or should I not be multiplying by the square root of 3? Are the values in this question actually phase or line values? What they give me? Did they give me the line-to-line? Did they give me the line-to-neutral? They were calling it phase. Are they calling it line-to-line, etc.? So I want you to constantly think and use your brain, and you will avoid these needless mistakes. So am I using the right formula for Y or delta configuration? Am I carrying out my math with the decimal in the right place for the units I'm working in? And write down those units. We know they can be tricky, so keep asking. Should I be using polar or rectangular right now? Am I converting correctly? Am I using the right complex number for the math? Am I adding when I should be multiplying? Am I using polar when I should be rectangular, etc.? A lot of students are going to lose costly points on questions that they would have otherwise solved correctly because they use incorrect formulas. So don't let it happen to you. And these questions should be part of your mental thought process. It's really going to help you. So use it if you aren't already. All right, repeat after me. This might be a little silly, but like I said, we want you to do the very best that you can. So I want you to take an oath with me, right? Raise your right hand and say, I promise to always show my work, always draw and sketch relevant diagrams, and to always show my units next to every single number, including K for 1,000 and M for 1,000,000 for mega. All right. Last but not least, when you finish. So from the examinee guide, when you finish, exit procedures are: raise your hand to notify the proctor when you have completed the exam. The proctor will collect the exam book and answer sheet before dismissing you. And I made this part in bold. Once dismissed, you will not be permitted to re-enter the exam room. If you complete the exam within 15 minutes of exam time expiring, you must remain at your seat until the exam ends, and all examinees are dismissed from the exam room. So once you raise your hand to leave, it's over. And why am I starting with that first? Well, your biggest resource on this exam day is time. Why? Why, oh why would you work this hard and not use every single amount of resource given to you? It boggles my mind how many people turn it in early. Why? Why would you leave minutes left on the clock? I want you to, I want you to use every single minute allotted to you for each session. Don't turn it in early. You should be among the last group of people in the exam room at the end of each session, and I mean it. If you're not staying up until you run out of time, you are giving up points. Don't do it. Please don't do it. Expect early finishers. People are going to be turning in their exam halfway through the exam session, towards the end, you name it. Some people, this makes them nervous. It makes them feel less prepared as the other people in the room that are done way before them. But since we have an amazing strategy that's going to help us do our best, we know that this is pure nonsense. Early finishers are, as politely as I possibly can be, early finishers are fools. So don't be one. Every single early finisher you see turning in his or her exam should make you more confident, because instead of mistakenly thinking that they know something you don't, you realize that you know something they don't, right? And that's that they are giving up points on the exam. They are making a huge mistake. Very unfortunate for them, but we know better. So when you finish, if you finish multiple passes on the exam, like we talked about earlier, and you've answered confidently every single question, and you still have time left, which is a little unlikely, but not completely impossible, then I want you to do the following. I want you to go back and check your work on every single problem until you run out of time. Remember, our goal is to maximize the number of questions right any way that we can. So how many times while studying have you made a mistake due to something like rounding error, mathematical mistake, polarity, negative when it should be positive, positive when it should be negative, using single phase instead of three phase instead of single phase, misreading the problem statement, right? It happens all the time. So I want to ask you this, and I want you to answer honestly. Do you really think, under all the pressure of the exam, that you didn't make any of these same mistakes and these familiar mistakes? Yeah, right. We know that's a lie. So So I want you to use any and all extra time to hunt these down and correct them. You should be excited about this because these are problems that you know how to do, but you got wrong just due to a minor mistake, a minor mishap, right? You had the problem right, but unfortunately you multiplied and you should have divided, or you multiplied by -1 when it should have been +1. So it's stuff you know. These are free points to help you pass. Go after them, find them, make them your goal to hunt them down and fix them. It could definitely mean the difference between passing and failing. So when you finish, avoid at all costs. Avoid the urge to turn in your exam, even with 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute left on the clock. Avoid it. Use every minute, every second. Expect to be frustrated, expect to be stressed. Man, probably drink a lot of caffeine. You've been studying, you're nervous. Expect to be under pressure, but I don't want you to give in. I want you to stick with it. I want you to go back to your training. I want you to promise yourself to stick it out. And in return, I promise you will definitely find a few mistakes that you will have the time to correct. And once again, these could make all the difference in passing. So don't give up. You came this far, right? We're not going to give up. Okay. What to do when you're really finished, when you have run out of time and been instructed to put your pencil down. So when the exam is completed and turned in, relax. It's going to be the hardest thing to do, I know it, but try your best to just relax. You're going to be stressed. You're not going to be sure how you did. You're going to be questioning yourself. Don't do this. Resist the urge to feel this way. Everyone's going to be feeling this way and thinking this way. It's completely normal. The exam is designed to test your limits. There's going to be a few extremely difficult questions on there that few, if any, are going to answer. So just relax. If it's rush hour traffic, think about hanging out at the hotel for an hour or two while traffic dies down. Consider yourself to treating a nice dinner and, an alcoholic beverage if you're still inclined at the hotel restaurant to reward yourself. After all, you've put in a tremendous amount of time and effort and you've made it this far already. So again, do your best not to think about the exam or to be hard on yourself. The exam's over. There's nothing left that you can do at this point. Trust you did everything in your power to prepare and let go as best as you can. When you get home, of course, plan some time off with your family and friends to reward yourself and invest back in those social relationships that you had to put aside during your study time. It goes without saying, but it's true. And of course, all you can do is wait for your results, but you want to have faith in yourself. All right, we're close to the end here. We're going to do a quick stage 3 execute, a quick review. We talked about what to expect, what to bring, our advanced test taking strategy, what to do when we finish. So what to expect, we want to read all the NCEES documentation, and I'm going to include the links at the end of the video, so don't fret. Have your ID and exam authorization ready to go. Keep it in a safe place. Don't lose it. There's going to be 2 4-hour sessions with a break in between, and there's going to be very strict rules, lots of people, assigned seating. We want to do everything we can to be prepared. Next, what to bring, 2 approved calculators and a watch. Every single book and reference that you have, all bound with no loose leaf paper, right? Otherwise, they're going to kick you out. Your biofuel, your lunch, snacks, fluids, and caffeine. And leave your cell phone, iPad, Fitbit, whatever it is, leave it in the car. If you have an Apple or smartwatch, don't risk it. Just get an analog one. Our advanced test taking strategy, we have a 6-minute per question average working pace. We want to leverage that to our advantage, and we're going to take multiple passes of the exam from easy to hard, and we're going to move on when we get stuck. We're not going to waste our precious time. And we're going to show all of our work. We're going to draw sketches, show our units, write down formulas. And hey, I got to remind you, remember, you promised. And last, question yourself. Make sure you're using the correct formulas and concepts for each problem. Have that internal, healthy, mental dialogue going. Is this the right formula? Is this 3 phases? Is this a single phase? Should I be using the square root of 3? Should I not be using the square root of 3? Am I in the right type of complex number unit? Am I supposed to be using polar, etc.? So question yourself. And last, when you finish, don't give up early. Please don't be an early finisher. Use every single minute given and quite literally make them tell you to put your pencil down. Work until they say put your pencils down. And then, of course, turn in our exam and breathe. Try to relax. Let go. We are finished. And then while you wait for results, spend time with the people in your life and have faith in how you did. So here's some useful links. Our exam day policies, an examinee guide, calculator, and the exam schedule. In the course, I'm going to actually paste clickable links so you can get to them pretty quickly. Remember, all of this is subject to change. Make sure you read through it quickly. If something did change and you're not up to date on it, it could end up costing you the exam. So please be prepared and do your homework, do your due diligence. And last but not least, I want to leave you with something to remember. We have an ongoing theme here that there's successful students and that there's unsuccessful students. And the biggest difference between the two is how they approach studying. It's how they approach the exam. Are they going to give in and turn in their exam when they've got 30 minutes left because they're just kind of giving up? Are they going to stick it out? Are they going to take those practice problems leading up to the exam in the same pace as the exam itself? So please remember, be the successful student anytime you can. Don't be the unsuccessful student. Why is that? Because the unsuccessful students typically don't pass. It's a very tough exam, and we want you to pass. We want you to be the successful student. So that's it. That is our Stage 3 Execute. It is complete. Hope you enjoyed the series. We put a tremendous amount of thought and effort into it. We want to arm you with every single possible strategy leading up to the exam and at the exam itself to leverage your highest possible score, because we want you to join us among the ranks of professional engineers. So thank you very much for listening. Enjoyed making it for you. For more, come see us. You know where to find us, www.electricalpereview.com. See you soon.